Welcome Gemini to your in-depth monthly forecast for May 2025. We need to be mindful of the position of your ruler at the start of this month, and Mercury is still in a very bubbly, friendly part of your chart. But it's joined by Venus, the relator, as it returns to the sign of Aries on the first day and meshes in a quite mesmeric way to Neptune. Through the first week, you could feel quite nostalgic. And particularly as the Sun does continue a more muted location, perhaps you will feel sentimental too. And that points towards that collective in your 11th house of sociability and friendships, of connecting to like-minded people. But it could be that you have a meetup linked to a creative or artistic or philosophical interest that you have. But right at the start of this month, the moon is in your sign, very close to Jupiter, but they're both squared off by Saturn, and that energy is something to be mindful of as a backdrop for the whole month, particularly as Mars is in your third house. Now, the third house is redolent of the energies of Gemini, but Mars in Leo is very proud and can be loud. So there may be something you want to discuss at the start of this month, as Mars is in opposition with Pluto, that you feel very strongly about. And it could be coming from an instinct because of the Sun broadly T-squaring them in your 12th house. So if you do stand up a particular viewpoint, particularly with the sensitivity of Venus and Neptune, which could be a little distorted, you need to make sure you've absolutely nailed your facts. Also, Jupiter in your sign is not only starting this month, inching closer back to a square to Saturn, which began, first of all, within 3 degrees last July. It hasn't been ongoing within 3 degrees for a while, but as Jupiter comes to the end of its journey through your sign, they are inching back towards that tension. And also in the mix is the North Node. So when it comes to your claims or your beliefs, or the things you feel very assured and positive and confident about, Jupiter in your own sign, when it comes to your professional situation, do ensure that you are absolutely clear on what you want to achieve and who you want to influence. Now, as Venus makes its way further into the sign of Aries, it reconnects with Pluto. Now, Pluto, in that opposition with Mars, very, very powerful, starts a retrograde on the 4th, which goes on through to the middle of October. But this is a repetition. There may be someone, perhaps it's someone you're reconnecting to, who really just seems to have some kind of energy that you find very evocative, but perhaps quite hard to resist. But I feel that Pluto's retrograde through the next 5 months in the sign of Aquarius, your sister air sign, is actually not as potentially challenging as it could be. Because later this month, of course, Saturn arrives in your friendship sector and the part of your scope to do with your long-term plan, but Pluto aligns with that constructively. It's aligning with Neptune through the last 10 days of this month, constructively, within 3 degrees. And then when Uranus pitches up in your sign on the 7th of July through to the 7th of October, that too is when Pluto is going to be influential. So although it is in retrograde and Pluto can be the revealer, the 9th house can be about contracts, it can be about publishing, it can also be about the law, but it can be about philosophies and travel. So all of those areas could be those that really evolve for you in a constructive way. But on the 5th, Venus emerges from its shadow. When Venus went direct on the 13th of April, it was shadowed by the strict energies of Saturn. In fact, right through April, and again on the 25th of the month, there was an exact conjunction between the two. So as Venus returns to Aries and picks up speed from the 5th, that's something to really savour, because Gemini, by the 11th, Venus starts to forge a stunning angle to Mars, one which goes on right to the end of the month within 3 degrees. In fact, they peak in an exact cooperative arrangement on the 22nd. So Venus in your 11th house and Mars in your 3rd house, which is chatty, interactive, but also could give you the urge to be more physically active. It suggests that you're going to have a potentially quite social time, or will you? Because on the 10th, Mercury, your ruler, pitches into the tender 12th house, but it also clashes brutally with Pluto. And Mercury is also going to come into a conjunction later on in the month with Uranus. And in fact, on the full moon of the 12th, it's Uranus that's very close to the Sun in a very psychological part of your scope. The moon on the other side of the heavens, very intense in Scorpio, in its fall, is suggesting that if something practically or emotionally and spiritually is out of kilter in your world, it may be that something will just come into the open very, very quickly, which could be very disruptive. Now, in terms of our overall experience, Uranus applying to the Sun over week 3 can see unsettled conditions around finance. For you, it could be much more psychological. You may feel irritable. There could be some old issues that just seem to come up from nowhere. And despite the value of Venus and Mars, the two planets of passion and desire, collaborating, if you're in a relationship which isn't working for you, I feel one of the things you might want to do is break free. So a weak tie could still be a little bit affected despite the value of Venus and Mars in that glittering alliance. But it's all to go for on the 20th, Gemini, because the Sun returns to your sign for the first time in 11 months. But not just that, the Sun then forges a stunning angle to Pluto. So one of astrology's most powerful associations, because the Sun in your sign brings you into the present, which is very, very welcome. Of course, you have Jupiter there as well. But Mercury is going to be joining up with the Sun on the 26th. But just be aware, between that period of the Sun's arrival and Mercury catching up, things can still be restless because Mercury is so close to Uranus. That said, we have on the 25th, Saturn returning to the sign of Aries for the first time since 1999. It's just going to be for 3 months and 7 days, so to the end of August, by the 1st of September, back into the sign of Pisces through a retrograde. But on the 27th, the new moon in your sign is also embracing your ruler Mercury. And that really brings some glittering magic to bear, I feel. And Saturn moving into your 11th house just suggests if there have been some disappointments through this month in terms of people's trustworthiness, loyalty, or honesty, because of the 12th house energy, and especially through the full moon and the position of your ruler aligning to Uranus, because Uranus is an electric energy, but essentially Uranus is a truth seeker. It can be very outspoken. It's possible that someone's going to confront you with a side of yourself that you're not ready to hear, because in the 12th house, that's what can happen. People could make a judgment or a comment on you, and you need to be prepared for that. But the potential to use the power of Venus and Mars, the sheer charisma of that, if you don't have things that are out of balance in your situation, you're in touch with your emotional world, you're clear about some of your maybe vulnerabilities and you're okay with them, you're not a little bit distant from them. Uranus can be about distance. I feel that you can embrace that Venus sextile with Mars in a much more successful way. So when we reach the last 10 days of this month, what Saturn can do in your 11th house, even though Saturn is technically in a full in Aries, is just see you getting very clear and determined about some of your long-term plans. But if there are any weak associations or friendships, they are going to be teased out this month, I feel, because of that 12th house energy, then Saturn aligning or alighting in your 11th house. Now, the month ends with a gorgeous link between Neptune and Pluto. Again, they're there from the start of the month, it's just there within 3 degrees. I feel that 3 degrees is very important in terms of the orbit, because it's much more powerful. So for you, because Pluto is in retrograde in the 9th house and Neptune is in inspirational and passionate form in your 11th house, you could be surprised about some of the people who do come into your world, even if there are some older faces that are being shook out, and perhaps in quite bruising and unexpected ways because of the disruptive potential of Uranus. But the month ends with a crowning moment, literally. The sun places his heat upon your head with a cazimi, but also it's a superior cazimi because Mercury's not retrograde. And what a cazimi is the position of Mercury is embedded right at the heart of the sun as we see it from Earth. So that provides a glow up. So the magnificence, the power, the sheer raw resources of the sun is giving you the potential to use what is quite your talent, your mind, your quick wits, your mercurial swiftness, where you can be very dexterous, but also it can be very bubbly, it can be cheeky, it can be fun. So right at the end of this month, you could feel absolutely inspired, particularly if you've got new ideas that are very exciting, if you're connecting with fresh faces that are giving you a sense of uplift, or you're someone with a story or information you want to share. So if you're a teacher or a trainer, a marketeer, a blogger, someone who enjoys using social media, you could be on absolutely top form as you come to the end of this month. But essentially, if you're someone who is a little bit reluctant to look at your shadow side, the heart of this month is really asking you to embrace it, not judge it. Just accept that we all have parts of our nature that are more challenging to accept. But if you can accept some of your sensitivities, that frees up your energy to focus on being more practically productive on the back of the Scorpio full moon. But as the month draws to a close, the potential for social interaction with that Venus sextile to Mars and all that glorious Gemini energy as the cosmic curtain comes down is absolutely fantastic. Have a great month, Gemini. Remember to check out my new website, please, at www.patrickarundell.com. You can get your free natal horoscope. It's absolutely brilliant. The big three, the ascendant, sun and the moon, but also you can find out exactly where your other planets are, the signs they're in, the houses they're in, and critically the relationships between them. You can also sign up for your free daily written horoscope. Please see below for more.